material, then watched the body camera footage and said the way those officers behaved was exactly the way that they had been trained.
ABC's Trevor Alton, Rochester. Stay safe if you're headed out this Labor Day weekend. Experts say gather with family members and mingle outdoors, not inside, amid
a new prediction that U.S. deaths to COVID could reach 410,000 by the start of next year. And experts fear that large crowds this weekend could spark another surge in cases. In preparation for that, we've seen in Miami-Dade County, there's a 10 p.m. curfew and a $100 fine for people not wearing masks in public.
ABC's Alex Perche. President Trump fighting back, denying he made insulting comments about fallen American troops. The president refuting anonymous published claims that he called American vets losers and suckers. But former Vice President Joe Biden unleashing a scathing attack, saying Trump's not fit to be commander-in-chief if it's true. You're listening to ABC News.
With the murder of a police detective and the suicide of another, it's understandable why Cleveland Police Chief Calvin Williams was emotional on Friday at the time he and the city's safety director talked about the deaths.
The loss of an officer in the line of duty, especially to violence, is a terrible tragedy. But two officers in one night is really bad.
Now, 3 suspects are being questioned in connection with the murder of Detective James Skirnovitz. Neither the safety director or the chief would say what the detective was working on at the time he was shot dead, saying the investigation into the original case is still ongoing. As for the suicide of Cleveland police officer Nicholas Sabo at his home in Lorain County, that had been confirmed by that county's coroner. Hundreds turned out on Friday night in Chardon in Geauga County to support the high school football player who last Friday night ran onto the field carrying a symbol supporting police, a thin blue line flag. The superintendent of the Chardon schools later said that flag would be banned because some say it's a political symbol. Eric Downing, who organized the rally last night, told WTAM, don't forget the police response to the shooting at Chardon High School that resulted in the death of 3 students.
How's it sound? Hey, you got Pop all
officers ran into the school.
All good to go for the end.
Time, it wasn't.
Our
Everybody
final theme song.
Cheering them on, thanking them for doing it.
One business apparently has not been
45
affected
seconds
by
out?
the coronavirus pandemic. The
Okay, and then we're not going to make a big deal of it. That just will be our outro now.
Have not slowed down at all.
Coolness.
And the coroner in Franklin County is saying that overdose deaths in that county are
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
65%. She says many of the people who died from overdoses had been in recovery, but apparently relapsed during the pandemic.
Perfect.
I'm Tom Moore.
Filling your news feed with the top trending news at the top and bottom of the hour. Columbus's news is on News Radio 610 WTBN.
If finding a high-impact hire is a serious goal for your business, use Indeed. Their flexible payment options mean better bang for your buck with no long-term contracts. Indeed will even give you a $75 credit for your first sponsored job post at Indeed.com/high-impact. Terms and conditions apply.
At White Fence Surgical Suites, we're proud to be celebrating our 10,000th outpatient joint replacement surgery. Partnering with the physicians from JIS Orthopedics, White Fence Surgical Suites has performed more outpatient joint replacements than any other freestanding center in the world, right here in Central Ohio. Call 1-855-677-5005 or visit us online at whitefencesurge.com to learn how you can recover from joint replacement surgery in the comfort and safety of your own home.
Hi, this is Scott Grissett
and Jody Shields
of Columbus Mobility Specialists.
If you're having trouble climbing the stairs in your home, consider a stairlift system from Columbus Mobility.
Our comfortable, quiet systems offer you the safety you need to avoid dangerous falls and give you back your independence.
We are currently running a special, just $26.50 installed for a straight rail stairlift.
Call us for a free estimate. That's Columbus Mobility Specialists, 614-825-8996, or on the web at
columbusmobility.com.
Live from LAPD Firearms Range and Training Facility, this is On Target, the latest from the firearms industry, the products and politics that affect your hobby and liberty. This program may not be politically correct, but it is On Target. Now, your host, Eric Delbert.
Good afternoon. Welcome to On Target. We're broadcasting live from the studios of LAPD Firearms Range and Training Facility. That's located at 999 Bethel Road. I'm your host, Eric, along with my father, Phil. All police deserve to be dead. Tell that to the family of Cleveland police officer, Detective James Skirnovitz, who was killed this week in the line of duty. All police deserve to be dead. Horrible words from a piece of crap thug in Chicago. All police deserve to be dead is what was posted on Billy Jackson's Facebook page this week. Free country, right? All police deserve to be dead. Irresponsible comments, inciting violence, certainly not a role model to our children, unless, wait for it, unless you live in Chicago, because this piece of crap, sorry, Emily, I almost slipped. This piece of crap, Billy Jackson, is a Chicago school teacher and still is at Wendell Phillips Academy in Chicago. And today, Chicago school remains silent about his post. Reason number 1,252 to move out of that godforsaken city that has become a reflection of the horrible leadership that has had for decades. We are the owners of LAPD Firearms Range and Training Facility and are active law enforcement. But for 1 hour on Saturdays, we put together a group of firearm experts to discuss new products in the market, training tips, and oftentimes political topics surrounding the Second Amendment. Our commitment, though, has always been to bring you facts about our industry and ultimately help our listeners and our customers with safe, responsible ownership of firearms.
I thought this show was supposed to be upbeat today, and then you start out with something like that.
Well, it just came in.
I'm going
to
have to start screening your script there.
That is, it's incredible.
I know.
I mean, it is incredible. If I were to come out and say something like that, people would demand my badge, demand our business be, rioted or, protested. But this school teacher can say this and then nothing happens?
And then has that influence on kids. Isn't that nice?
The school teaching system has been a downfall ever since I can remember.
It is.
I can't believe that the teaching of teachers, how they put down the president, and they have no problems doing it. If you remember, just before the election, 3.5 years ago, the one school teacher that was teaching the kids not to like the president and telling them that President Trump, or the soon-to-be President Trump, was a POS.
Right. It's incredible.
So that's why I wore this shirt today. For all of you on Facebook, you want to take a look at my shirt because I'm going to end up pissing off somebody.
I'll be darned. Well,
I like that.
Well, the school.
And Eric, there have been several cases that we put on our show here about students who have had pictures target shooting with their mom or their dad who've been suspended from school. And that was posted on Facebook. And here's a teacher who posted this on Facebook, and nothing is done.
Well, where Ron and I went to school, we didn't have that sort of teachers out there. We had nuns and priests.
Right.
And they kept order, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I wanted to thank Mr. Andrew Pollack last week for jumping on with us. Wow, what a patriotic, passionate man who's truly taken the worst of tragedies and turned it into a life mission to help others. His story is always powerful, and last week was no exception. Today we welcome to our show a person who has also committed his life to serving our community. He's put countless bad guys behind bars and is prosecuting rioters and others as we speak. Franklin County Prosecutor Ron O'Brien sitting with us today. Great to have you.
Thank you, Eric. I sure appreciate the invitation to join you today. And as your dad just alluded to, we graduated from high school together.
Were you guys in the same class? I meant to ask.
Yes, we were.
Really?
We were. And I have to say this, we were the very first class to go through from freshman to senior year in that school.
The first class. That 6 years was the first class that went.
It took 6 years. What the heck?
But you guys need to come up with a picture sometime from back then if you're together or something.
Yeah, taking that horses to school.
Yeah.
Watch it. Just because you're feeling better doesn't mean that I can't.
No, go right ahead, Phil.
All right.
I'm all ready for you.
We're going to talk to Ron later in the show about some of what's going on in our society
and I've got some questions for him as well.
Uh-oh, here we go. JC has the news coming up shortly that never fails to make you want to shake your head. And JC, this week, it seems exceptionally bad. It's starting out with our buddy Billy Jackson there. It's just, Chicago is just not looking good right about now.
It never has looked good, and it just seems to be going downhill fast. So that's what we have. But yeah, we'll be talking about that. A lot of
Yes.
stories.
We'd like to thank our sponsors, TTG Technologies, Toyota West, Jackson Lawn Care, and Egress Windows, the Trigger Group, Blackwing Shooting Center, River's Edge Cutlery, and CNS Engraving, all who make the show possible each week. Joining me today in the LEPD studios, JC. You heard his voice on the phone there. JC, did you have a chance to check out our story we did with Channel 6 this week?
Yeah, it was great, Eric, and as being one of the instructors, and of course we were talking about the Castle Doctrine, and like you said, we teach that, and as one of the CCW teachers, instructors here, yeah, I really stressed that. So it was a great story. You look good, by the way.
And actually, Ron, you were mentioning that story as well this week about the Castle Doctrine. I think Haley Nelson maybe reached out to you or your office and stuff. So
yes, Haley was looking for how many times since the law went into effect in 19. On the burden of proof, where we have to disprove self-defense, how many cases that in the Castle Doctrine had affected in the courthouse. And really, I had to tell her not too many. And she interviewed my predecessor, Mike Miller, who was county prosecutor for 16 years before me, and he's now represents defendants in the court for his view on it as well. And I thought it was very informative and educational report.
Yeah, it was. It was good, and actually it was kind of neat because we actually got her shooting a little bit, which we always get a chuckle out of that. So we put her down range, and it was neat. It was a good.
You put her down range?
Well, she was with the gun down range. I mean, it wasn't.
All right.
Yeah, with the gun.
Okay.
She's part of the media we like.
All right.
So
Only Phil. Only Phil.
That voice to my left is my father and co-owner. Papa, did you see, you have right here in front of you, a lot of employees were disappointed today because our Employee of the Month came out, and they were a little disappointed that it wasn't them.
And and they work so hard to be the Employee of the Month.
Right, and this Employee of the Month this week, responsible for more sales right here at LEPD than any single salesperson, Mayor Andrew Ginther. Right here, and you'll see it if you're watching on Facebook. Our Employee of the Month. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor.
He even signed it, I think. Here, if you look at this, Ron, I don't know if you saw that there. Yep. And his quote, you're either with us or against us. Yep.
That's real nice.
Yeah.
Real nice.
So apparently, there you have it. So who else here? Big Ed says to my right. Big Ed, I thought you'd be on your bike today, actually. Their big rally going around 270 a couple times today. I figured you'd be out there riding on that.
I probably would have, but then I would have had to call you and tell you I couldn't make the show.
Oh.
And then you guys would have put me on another 90-day probation.
No,
you're learning.
Hey,
He's learning.
We would just extend the one that you're on now.
All right, extend it, make it longer, whatever. Hey,
right.
They're saying that we have a big echo on the radio. I don't know if that's Emily that takes care of that or you, but the 610 has got a big echo with John. With Ron. Yeah, JC.
Okay.
JC.
All right, and let's see what else we have here. Of course, Mr. O'Brien says to my right here in our studios. If you missed a show, the podcast is a great place to go and listen to it later on. You can go to 610 WTVN. You can go to iHeartRadio. You can go to iTunes, Google Podcasts. It's out there everywhere to catch the show. Facebook Live is really neat because you can watch the show live. Ed talks to you, interacts with you during the show, and also on breaks.
I'll answer your questions. I'll talk to you, whatever it needs.
Right there. So it's a great place, too. And that show stays out there on Facebook as well as on YouTube. If you have a question for us, OnTarget@lepd.com is the email address. Great place to send us suggestions for Guns of the Week and for other topics you would like us to discuss. JC, it is time. Well, you know what? Before we go to the news, I got two announcements. One, if you're not registered to vote, and you're in the area, you're driving down Bethel Road today, we have a table set up with Jamie up top by the range to get people registered to vote. So if firearms is something that's important to you, obviously it's something that is top of mind with the candidates, and you need to get out there and vote, and we are doing that here today. And then also, next Friday on 9/11, we have a really neat event that is coming right here to LEPD. It's going to be out in our parking lot. We have a Medal of Honor recipient who's going to be coming and speaking to a crowd. This is put on by the President Trump re-election campaign. And if you want to join us on that, there's going to be some registration on our Facebook page linked to the campaign's page, and it's supposed to be a really neat event. So a couple things to keep in mind. JC, news of the day. It's incredible. I'll let you tee it off.
Oh, it's incredible. I hope this echo really isn't that bad. You sound great to me, but here we go. I guess if you want to call this good news, it's bad news, but good news. This Aaron Danielson, who was part of a Patriot parade caravan and was shot and killed by an Antifa security member, self-described, this Michael Reynolds. Well, the feds hunted him down and pulled a gun. There's a shootout, and he is gone. So that's 2 lives gone, but he just, shooting somebody on a Patriot prayer caravan and killing them for no reason. But anyway, that's done with. And if you want to talk about it on Facebook, you watch yourself, because Facebook does not support free speech and has declared this Kyle Rittenhouse as a mass murderer. I mean, they've already tried him and convicted him in their mind, even though there's more and more video evidence that that was not his intent at all. As a matter of fact, someone posted uncovered video of him helping an injured protester who was struck in the foot with a projectile. And then later, there's another one where he's telling the cameraman on film that he brought his medical kit with him in case to help anybody who could be injured, in this type of riots. But because he has several pro-police posts on Facebook and pro-Trump posts, they apparently thought right off the bat, this guy's got to be a mass murderer. And if you post anything, if you go to look up Kyle Rittenhouse, you will not find anything on him now, because they have decided that they're pulling him off because they've labeled him as a mass murderer. So there you go with Facebook.
But it's okay I just want to make sure I got all my facts clear. I'm writing this down, JC. But Billy Jackson's, his comments out there inciting violence, that's fine, though.
Absolutely.
Okay,
yeah,
make sure we got that.
All police should be dead. That's okay. And what the rioters are saying, and their quotes, that's fine to have on there. But you can't, even if you aren't really supporting him, but just saying, look, the facts look like it's not, it'd be self-defense. No, I'm sorry, you won't be able to put that on there. They may pull you off of Facebook permanently. So, and we mentioned the teacher in Chicago. Well, Chicago, this is really crazy. One of these things that I find is extremely dangerous is out there, and that is on August 26th, the FBI sent out notices to Chicago area law enforcement of a warning that more than 36 street gangs, these cold-blooded street gangs, as the ABC said, have formed a pact to shoot on sight any police officer that has a weapon drawn on any subject in public. And it's even worse than it sounds, because they said the situational information, according to ABC, from FBI officials, said that members of the gangs are they're searching around for police activity and filming the police officers. And if they see that an officer has drawn their gun at any time, that's not when they shoot them. They're going to try to identify them and follow them and later do a shoot on sight of that officer. That is what the gangs in Chicago have put out, enough that the FBI has put out warnings. Think about that. And Chicago, oh my goodness.
I might tell you, Eric, I got that warning. I'm on a distribution list, a national distribution list the FBI sends out of those be on alert for. And I did see that, and that came to local law enforcement here, because sometimes these involve gangs that communicate between Chicago, the West Coast, and Columbus.
Wow. That's scary. I mean, sometimes you look at this stuff, Ron, and you think, it's in a different city, it's in the big cities. But, I mean, it's like you said, it can be right here in our back door as well. Wow.
So why is all this stuff coming from Chicago? Eric, you and I talked about this morning, and this came from the Chicago Tribune, that basically the reason is either they're not clearing up their cases. Number one, they said less than 50% of homicides are ever cleared. But what the courts are doing, apparently, they have a new police chief up there, Police Superintendent David Brown, who looked at it and just said, the quote was, violent offenders have acted with impunity much more than we've ever seen in the past. And he said there's just a sense of lawlessness in Chicago. So what have they done? Well, get this. The courts are releasing suspects on their own recognizance, or as they said in the Tribune, incredibly low bail. Then who are they releasing? They're releasing this year, more than 1,000 people charged with murder, robbery, or illegal possessions of guns, as the Sun-Times in Chicago said. And get this, there are 43 people facing murder charges were released on electronic monitoring.
That'll work.
More than last year. Yeah. And get this, about 1,000 charged with illegal gun possession are out there on, and 160 people charged with robbery. They're out in the streets, and the police chief said many of these homicides are being caused by the people who are out off on electronic monitoring system, and you wonder why. Over 1,000 this year: murder, robbery.
John, we need more gun laws.
This is just insanity.
It truly is. When we come back from this break, Ed, you got prepared to give us our latest Chicago stats.
Absolutely.
And then, JC, there's one other story I want to get to, too, about the ability to loot in California now. It's just gotten a lot easier for people. So we'll talk about that when we come back from the break. We're on Target, broadcasting live from the studios of LEPD Firearms and Range. We wreck after the break.
Hey, what's going on out there, Facebook? See several people checking in. Morning, Steve. Paul. Margaret, good to see you on here. Cindy.
Are we clear there, Em?
Derek.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting us know
I
on the
unplugged that
radio.
computer.
We got a thumbs up for the radio guys. That sounds good, they're saying now.
Yeah, I think, Eric, it's whenever it's in the background for your store.
I think it's that speaker, if I turn that speaker up a little bit.
Okay.
For the listening audience here. Is my song first, Em?
Paul, they want you to, Paul.
Yes, because I go in order.
Ron, they want you to pull your face mask off. The fans are saying, tell him to take his face mask off.
It's a flag.
I realize it's the flag, but they want to see your lovely face, apparently.
And wait, what they're saying, Ed, put your face mask on. I
No,
don't know.
that isn't what they said.
Well, when you say they, that assumes it's plural.
Yes, and you know what?
One person may have
Ed, this might be a good time to say that I'm jealous of you. You know why?
Why?
Because you got enough real estate right here. You can put a whole paragraph on your chest.
Yeah, I put a billboard on here, babe.
Hey, you could sell
Don't be a
advertising
hater.
space.
Don't be a hater.
I really like that shirt.
John Johnson is at Riverside Hospital. I hope you're doing well, John. Thanks for checking in while you're there. Godspeed to you and fast recovery.
How much time, Em?
19 seconds.
19 seconds before
Well,
you
now
lose
it's like
it.
15.
15.
You got 1 second, Ed.
Why is JC remote? Because JC doesn't like Ohio, I think.
Neither does my husband.
Your ABC 6 first warning weather today. Lots of sunshine, dry and mild, high of 81. Tonight, clear skies, partly cloudy or actually pleasantly cool later on, low of 58. Sunday, more sunshine, a little more humid, high of 83. For Labor Day, it's going to be mostly sunny and hot with a slight chance of late day showers, high of 85. Currently 78 degrees on your severe weather station, News Radio 610, WTVN.
Traffic, weather, and interesting talk. News Radio 610 WTVN.
Popo, I'll buy you a gun if you can tell me who sings this. Ah, right there on the spot.
I know who sings this.
You really shouldn't know because
It's
kind
Night
of
Sweats. Night Sweats.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Miss Nathaniel Ratliff and the Night Sweat.
Yeah.
Oh, I got to buy you a gun.
And now, here's the thing, is that if you see the video, I mean, it really gets you hopping.
All right.
You know, the guy with the saxophone.
Yeah.
Man.
Isn't that one of your favorite bands?
It
Eric?
is. You know what? It's kind of one of those fringe bands that I've grown to appreciate. Welcome back to On Target. I'm your host, Eric, joined today in the LEPD studios. JC is on the live line with us. My father and co-owner, Phil, sits to my left. Big Ed sits to my far right. And our special guest this week, Franklin County Prosecutor Ryan O'Brien. Just talk about committing a lifetime to a profession. When we went into break, JC, we were talking a little bit about news. Oh, actually, Ed, why don't you go with your Chicago stats real quick?
All right, I'll do that. A little bit of heartbreaking news here in Chicago. I thought it was going to be a good week, but they're keeping up with the trend. Year to date, 2,870 shot. 532 of them were homicides. 92% were black or Hispanic. This week, Eric, 104 shot. 20 of them homicides. A little bit of bad news. The police stats went up.
After 14 weeks of staying the same, because the police are out there just shooting people left and right, Ed.
Yep, I think they gave them their guns back, and 2 officers had to protect their lives, and then we had 2 more shootings, so now we have 5.
Total of 5 for the year.
Total of 5 for the year.
I will, and this is really horrible.
In that rampant city,
right,
of murder rate by the police.
It's really horrible because we make light of this a little bit, but it's really tragic. But I'll tell you, I was telling you this, Ed. Last night I was looking at these stats, and they changed. They get updated every night. And last night I looked at them, and I thought, wow, they're down this week. I mean, there was only 80 shootings, and I think it was, 13 homicides. I'm like, wow, it's actually a down week. Woke up this morning, and they never fail to
Friday night partying.
Yep. And just think, we got a holiday weekend this week.
Yeah. You're probably see double in the 4 days.
Right. JC, talk about looting in California. We've all seen it.
This is good. We'll switch to the West Coast, and I'm certain Ron O'Brien could appreciate this. A California DA, and this was the DA for Contra Costa, California. By the way, whose campaign, which he got elected, was funded by George Soros, one of the George Soros district attorneys are putting in. She has issued new guidelines for looting charges. In California, looting is very simply theft committed during a state of emergency. And whether it's grand larceny, petty larceny, whatever, that's looting. And the crime for that, it could be a misdemeanor, but it could be a felony and punishable by up to 3 years. She thought that was a little too harsh, so she's new guidelines for her county. And now she's instructing officers to determine if the looters need these items before making the arrest. I'm reading verbatim from this, because officers, during the firing, the looting, the rampages going on, was this theft offense substantially motivated by the emergency, or simply an offense that happened to coincide with the rioting? And after you've made that, what they took today, it was not a personal need that they had for this item. You mean, you ask them those questions, and then is there any other law you could charge them with? Could you articulate something else that maybe would not be so harsh as saying looting as you're smashing windows and going in and carrying off watches and expensive TV? Maybe you needed that watch, or maybe my TV was on the fridge, so that 65-inch would be really nice.
JC, have you ever tried to?
This is real.
Have you ever tried to?
By the way, the district attorney's name is Deanna Beckton, and what just incredible. Okay, I was just
JC, have you ever tried to play PlayStation on a 40-inch TV? Come on. Yeah. You need the 55.
And also, how else can you raise money? You loot the stuff, you fence it, you raise the money to buy your drugs and your black market firearms. Come on.
So I really did.
So they
that.
need it.
I
So
got
they
a
need
monkey
it.
on my back, and I got to sell this stuff.
Since they don't work,
Right. So I've always, because I thought about the whole looting thing. I'm thinking, hey, you go down there, maybe get yourself a new pair of shoes. But I'm too particular because I'm going to be the one caught at the shoe store trying on sizes and stuff. I don't know if I can.
You just don't grab and run, right?
Yeah, that's not.
So the officer's supposed to do an interview in the midst of this, and hey, but pardon me, did you really need that? And
Yes, I needed that Rolex because I didn't want to be late for work.
Oh no, you said work. That's not.
Yeah.
That's not valid.
Only in California.
I'm sorry, late for the buddy's party.
That's right. All right. Well, JC, when we come back from the break, we are going to get to speaking with Ron O'Brien, sitting here right beside us, asking some of the hard questions about what's going on in our society, and from the judicial standpoint, what we can do to turn this around. We're on target. We're broadcasting live from the studios of LAPD Firearms and Range. We'll be right back after the break.
Hey, Eric, I got somebody asking about ammo. Anything going on in that line?
We got a little bit of 223, 556. All the pistol calibers are still extremely hard to get, and we're still only selling them if you purchase a gun or if you have a class with us. It's crazy. I mean, and the class has to be with us. We've had people come in saying, I'm taking CCW elsewhere, I need ammo, and we just don't have it to sell it in those cases, unfortunately. I would love to sell it. I would love to sell everyone a case of it,
There you go,
but it's
Mike.
just not there.
Sorry about that, Mike. Still low on ammo.
So, Eric, does that mean that when I take the class that I can get one for Zach?
You can take it. Zach be there shooting with you, or
right?
Just you,
Emily. Now look, I'm gonna give you as many rounds as you. If you shoot 10 rounds, I'll give you 10 rounds.
What did
teasing
you talk
you.
to Zach or something about how I've never been shooting or?
No. Remember, this is going out to millions of people on Facebook.
Yes. I know.
Okay. I'm teasing you.
Chris.
I just know he's going to ask me that. So.
Well, you'll probably have rounds left over, honestly.
Eric likes you. He'll give you an extra box.
I really
don't
don't
know
care
about
for
that.
Ed.
Yeah.
Chris McDonald, why does JC hate Ohio? JC, you're going to have to chime in on that because you seem to be hanging out in that state up north too much. I don't miss you. Whoop! I almost said it. The M word. It's got some beautiful country up there, but I don't know if I'd want to live there like JC's trying to do. Sad news about the Cleveland officers. Yes, flags are at half staff. It's terrible to see somebody murdered like that in cold blood. Nick, I will, or not Nick, I'm sorry. Will, I will ask Ron your question when we get back on the air and let him give you an answer to that. Hope you all are paying attention to what's going on in Sunbury, Ohio. They got one heck of a Trump rally up there on the Sunbury Square. I got some video that was sent to me with all the other Trump rallies that are going on. There was one that took place at 10 o'clock this morning, driving around 270, ending up at Alum Creek. And I have a picnic out there with a whole bunch of them, too, I heard. I don't see how Trump can lose. I don't see it. The amount of people that are supporting him, the amount of signs, the amount of flags versus what the other opponent has got out there. I don't know, maybe they're afraid to put the other opponents out there, or maybe they just
20 seconds.
Thank you. 20 seconds. Maybe the other opponent just thinks he doesn't need to advertise. But I never see people ganging up like that for him, supporting him.
Bye, Ed.
Yes. Goodbye. We'll put him on.
Live from LEPD Firearms Range and Training Facility, this is On Target, the latest from the firearms industry, the products and politics that affect your hobby and liberty. This program may not be politically correct, but it is On Target. Now, your host, Eric Delbert.
Welcome back to On Target. I'm your host, Eric, joined today in the live LEPD studios. We're at 999 Bethel Road. Stop by and see us. I have with me today Big Ed. Big Ed, I can already tell you're feeling better because you're cantankerous.
Yes. No more shots.
You're
No
kind
more
of
shots.
you're kind of a pain.
Hey,
you know
the pain is gone.
Well, that's why you're a pain for us now.
That's right.
Okay. Eric, did you look at this article that was handed to us?
I've heard it this week. Yeah. It's Chardon, isn't it, in Ohio?
It is it's a school district east of Cleveland has banned the thin blue line flag.
We can't have that
on the school premises after a football player sparked some controversy with it before a football game.
Because law and order is controversial.
It says, our goal is to ensure that all students, staff, and community members are provided the same opportunities to grow and learn in the school district, and this occurs in an environment that values the contributions of every school community member. You know, don't you learn by all this? I mean, this is a learning tool. You know, this is what happens in life. You know, learn from
school.
it.
How do you ban something that stands for good?
Ed, we saw in the Worthington, right here in Worthington, the school board came out, I forget the guy's name, Charlie, I think something, came out and said we need to take the resource officers out of the schools because the mere sight of an officer in the schools
traumatizes
can traumatize them and trip an episode.
Yep.
I'm sure that you've been traumatized as much as you've been around police, Ron.
Well, I would tell you, Phil, that going back to the Vietnam War days, there was a case from the Des Moines School District, the U.S. Supreme Court decided, and that said students had First Amendment rights the same as adults.
Really?
And that you couldn't prohibit, in that case, a student from wearing a shirt that dealt with the Vietnam War, and the controversy existed at that time. So I'm not sure how consistent with the Constitution and the U.S. Supreme Court.
We need to get a hold of this kid.
Look, it says in this year of racial justice protests, the flag has become polarizing.
The flag.
Well, the Democratic Party doesn't want to put God in their prayers or when they do the Pledge of Allegiance. So I guess it only stands for a reason. They might as well take down the blue line flag somewhere.
Of course. But you're seeing a lot of like Biden signs in the yard right next to the I support the police signs. Right?
Yeah, I've seen none.
That is, and if that occurs, that is confusing to me. How you can have one sign next to the other. Oh, we got to get a flag for our flagpole with a blue.
We have them. We sell them now too.
Why don't we shoot it up our flagpole?
Yeah, why don't you have one underneath the United States flag up there, Eric?
Word, I digress. So we're honored today to have Ron O'Brien here with us. Ron, you've been the Franklin County prosecutor for how many years now?
For over 20 years
Holy
now,
wow.
Eric. And I started there when I was a law student at Ohio State University and later served there as an assistant prosecutor and then as city prosecutor, and then I was elected city attorney, and then now have been in the county prosecutor's office, elected in '96. And so I'm running for re-election again this year, and some of the issues we're going to talk about here today, I think, are important to the public.
They are, and you talk about a commitment of your life to service to this city. It's just been wonderful. So let's talk about a little bit. I mean, it's been crazy. I mean, the last 6 months has been absolutely crazy. Crime is skyrocketing nationwide, and it appears to be doing the same right here in Columbus. We're hearing that we're on track to, I think, have the most murders ever. When common sense prevails, in the clear minds can step back and say, what can we do to prevent some of this? One of the things that we talked about last week, and it kind of was the impetus of you coming on today, is that we said, there's a lot of gun violence going on with young adults. I mean, you can't pick up the paper or turn on the news and you hear a 15-year-old shot a 16-year-old, a 13-year-old shot a 17-year-old. And we've said from all along, how are they getting their guns? I mean, we got to, at the very least, we had to have a way to get those from them. And I was surprised to find out that by the letter of the law, and this is, definitely correct me if I'm wrong or tell me where I'm missing this, but if a juvenile is walking down the street with an AK-47 on their back, that they're not breaking the law, even though you would think that it's illegal for them to possess that. How does that work? And is this really tying the hands of some of the officers out there?
Well, the law does not prohibit a juvenile from possessing a firearm. What the law does is prohibit another person, which could be a juvenile or an adult, but prohibits another person from selling, providing, furnishing a firearm to a juvenile. So at least the mere possession by a juvenile isn't a crime, but at least my view would be the juvenile who's observed possessing a gun, even though that itself is not a crime, it is the fruit of another crime, and that other crime is whoever gave them that gun, either by sale or otherwise, committed a crime by providing it to them. And it would be evidence of that crime, and certainly an officer could ask them the source of the weapon, and certainly I think the officer would be entitled to seize the weapon as fruit of the crime of furnishing a firearm to the weapon, with the exception perhaps of their parents. It's their parents.
That's where I was going. Was what if it's a birthday gift?
Yeah, and that would be the exception. That's why I think the officer's first step, if they observe that, would be to ask the juvenile where they acquired the weapon, and certainly the mere possession isn't a violation, but someone, unless it's a parent, committed an offense, and they may have got it from another juvenile, which of course juveniles can commit what they call acts of delinquency or crimes that if they were an adult, it would be an offense. So,
but there's
at
nothing.
least there is nothing, and I think the legislature.
Well, wait a minute, Ron. You just said that there's no law that says the juvenile can't possess it. But if another juvenile gives it to him, he was possessing it. Now another juvenile's possessing it again. Where's the crime there?
Well, the crime is juvenile 1 furnished it to juvenile 2.
But if it's okay for juvenile 1 to possess it.
Yeah,
but it's okay for us to possess it, but we can't give it to a juvenile.
Right.
So whether you're juvenile or adult, you can't furnish it to a minor, and the minor might have been lawfully possessing it.
Right.
But when they furnish it to another minor, that's the violation.
Okay. So the irony there is you could have, let's say, a gang member who's 14, 15 years old who's carrying his gun. Oh, he gets it taken away today because maybe the police are investigating the fruit of a crime, but he doesn't get charged. He goes, gets another one. Next day he's carrying it, and it could be a reoccurring thing, and that juvenile never gets pinned with any, possession.
And adults will use juveniles in that circumstance, whether they're in a gang or sometimes relatives. We've had cases where the adult knows the law and will have the juvenile carry the gun while they're casing a place for a robbery, and actually may have the juvenile carry the gun in on the robbery because you have the additional 3-year gun spec or firearm specification if you commit a crime with the firearm. So adults use juveniles because they know what this law is. The legislature long ago should have, with the exception of parents, and usually it's in the context of hunting, the legislature should have a long time ago prohibited juveniles from possessing firearms unless they're hunting with parents or unless they're target shooting with parents or the parents have provided.
Has there been any traction in that? I mean, obviously, you've been living this for years. I mean, is there any legislator that picks up on that and says, hey, this might be a good tool in the basket for officers?
I cannot think specifically of a bill that had been introduced to address that, but there's thousands of bills get introduced every session of the General Assembly, and I just can't remember and keep track of all of them. But certainly, if they did, it didn't get very far.
Well, so with that, go ahead, Phil.
Well, I sort of have a loaded question.
I do too.
You see all these articles in the paper about a kid 4, 5, 6 years old picks up a gun and shoots his brother or sister. And the news is real good about investigating that and putting it in print, but they never come back or they never follow up on where that 4, 5, 6-year-old kid got the gun, and if he got it from the parents, are the parents being held responsible for? I'm assuming that when they're that young, they're getting it from inside the house someplace. Are the parents ever held responsible for that? The paper never comes back and says anything, no follow-up.
Yeah, and periodically they are. We have asked the police in those kind of cases to investigate the source of the gun. We had one of those probably just 2 weeks ago where one youngster found a gun in the home and was playing with it and accidentally shot and killed a younger sibling. We asked the police to look into those circumstances because you can charge the person that owns the gun if you can prove it, and if it is reckless, you can charge them with child endangering the child by leaving the gun accessible in a place where the child could get it. Obviously, if it's a visitor to the house, that complicates it. But if it's someone living in the house and you have a gun laying on the top of the dresser drawer next to the bed, where the youngster can go in there and grab it anytime they want and play with it and either accidentally or intentionally shoot it, we have charged adults with endangering children, and that can be a predicate for either involuntary manslaughter, or most of the time we ask the police to consider a reckless homicide charge, because the adult has been reckless by leaving the weapon accessible to the minor. But I can think of probably in the last 5 years, a half a dozen times where people have been charged under that circumstance.
So it is something that's considered that
yes,
in these
absolutely.
cases.
But it'd be nice if the paper would follow up on that and print it, other than just say, "Help! Here's another gun used."
And you hear the anti-gun folks and their efforts to come up with something. They talk about, oh, we need a law that says guns have to be locked. Well, it's in that case, okay, what are you going to charge them with, a misdemeanor? You didn't have your gun locked. When there's other things that you could charge them with today. I don't think a law such as that is going to stop the person who doesn't lock it today. I don't think those people seem to be, a lot of times, aren't law abiding. So I don't think having another law in place saying you have to lock it
and
is going to do anything.
Sometimes it comes, as I say, if a child is visiting grandma and grandpa, and grandma and grandpa, for safety reason, keeps a gun readily accessible, and it just doesn't strike them, gee, the kids are coming over, grandkids, to visit today, and they don't go and put the gun up where it's not accessible, then the question becomes, you have to weigh that out. Whether that storage was proper or improper, and whether the neglect and realizing that the kids were going to be here and I need to do something, whether or not that crosses the line into criminal responsibility. And sometimes that's a tough question.
Ron, a little bit on civil unrest. It's been all over the papers. Actually, just this week, we saw that about 4,000 misdemeanor cases were dropped this year. Some of them for traffic. I mean, some of them for people going 33 miles an hour over the speed limit with no insurance, and those cases were dropped. You handle more the felony side of things. What can you say as far as prosecution of the looters, the rioters? Are you seeing some of those cases from the felony side? And, I mean, are those being prosecuted through?
Yeah, and that's a very good question. The county prosecutor's office, our office, prosecutes the felony crimes, rape, robbery, burglary, murder, drug offenses, passing bad check, forgery, identity theft. All those offenses that are felonies we handle. The misdemeanor crimes are handled either by the Columbus City prosecutor or in some instances, if it happens in Worthington, Reynoldsburg, Whitehall, they have their own city attorney that will come to municipal court and handle the case. But we handle the felonies, and actually at the start of the civil unrest, I asked the police to send to me a daily report on the arrests, the names of the people arrested, case number, if they had one, and what the charge was. And the last time I got that report was probably mid-July. And at that time, there'd been 141 arrests total attributable to the civil unrest. 119 of them were misdemeanors, and that is handled by the city prosecutor's office as opposed to our office. The other 22 felonies, either within a matter of days we would get a police file on it, or in most cases, because they went back, not surprisingly, it's hard to identify someone wearing a facial mask. So even if you had body cam of a rioter, a looter, a vandal, then they had to go back and see if they could look at the body cam and identify who the person was, either by clothing or otherwise. But long story short, I checked because you asked last week. We have asked the grand jury to return indictments on about 15 adults for felonies committed by them during the course of the protests, riots, looting. And 3 of them are breaking and entering and theft in the course of what would be a looting. Some of them in the Short North area. One as far up as around 14th and High in the campus area. The police have to see the people coming out, essentially, and they have to either apprehend them or there has to be another mechanism to identify the looter. And there was a lot of looting done where that couldn't be done, but we have at least 3 people from different incidents I know indicted for B&E and theft. We have 2 adults, 18 and 22, that were charged with vandalism for shooting out a bus window there next to City Hall with a pellet gun. and they're charged with vandalism and disrupting public service.
Wow.
Both of those felonies. And that's very dangerous, obviously, even though it was a pellet gun. The bus had to be taken out of service, and arrangements had to be made for the passengers, who obviously were scared to death when the window shattered.
Right.
And then we probably have 4 or 5 cases involving assault on a police officer. We have one man who actually, and we can trace it, went to the corner store where he bought socks, Corona beer, and lighter fluid, went out, dumped the beer, put the lighter fluid in the beer bottles, put the sock in the end, and went downtown with 6 of them and was lighting them and throwing them at police.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Yes.
Are you saying that he dumped the beer out?
Yes, he did.
Are you kidding?
Now, that's a crime.
That's the crime.
Is that what he got charged with? We're going to have to jump to a quick break. We'll just continue our discussion with Franklin County Prosecutor Ron O'Brien. We're on Target, broadcasting live from the studios of LAPD Firearms and Range. We'll be right back after the break.
I knew that.
It was Corona, so.
Is that
That's it. Corona's not a bad beer. It just matches coronavirus. I don't know if we're going to get a chance to ask these questions on the radio live, Ron, but I got one person on here asking me why it's so hard to get the death penalty in Ohio. So I don't know if you can.
Sure.
Well, Ed, you know what? We can talk about that too if we go a minute after.
Is he going to be around?
Yeah, you can hang for a minute, right?
Okay.
Ron?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, we'll do. Sometimes we do after we go off air on
Well,
WTVN.
at least you saw this morning the governor has reprieved everybody who is scheduled for an execution in the next, I think, 2 years.
Oh,
so you
really?
have
Oh,
people
how nice of him.
who were convicted in the 90s, the early 2000s, that have been in appellate court for 15 years that now, and all those cases go to the U.S. Supreme Court, have been affirmed and upheld, and the difficulty is finding the drugs to carry out the sentence, and he doesn't want to jeopardize the availability of the same kind of drugs for the Department of Mental Health as well as corrections for other purposes, and so he won't authorize their use for carrying out a death sentence.
Maybe we need to bring back some other methods.
It's
Firing
time
squad.
for weather, Eric.
All right. Your ABC 6 first morning weather today. Lots of sunshine, dry and mild, high of 81. Tonight, clear skies, pleasantly cool, low of 58. Sunday, more sunshine, a little more humid, high of 83. For Labor Day, mostly sunny and hot with a slight chance of late day showers and storms, high of 85. Currently, a beautiful 78 degrees on your severe weather station, News Radio 610 WTVN.
Stay informed, be entertained. News Radio 610, WTVN.
If everybody had a nose across the USA, then everybody'd be served like California. You see them wearing their baggies, where Archie sandals too. A bushy
Welcome back to On Target. Now, see there, you got a treat if you're watching on Facebook. Popo, put your shirt back on. Nobody wants to see that. Welcome back to
I
On
don't take my
Target.
shirt off anymore, Eric.
Well, aren't you going to ask who sang that? I know the answer
All
to
right.
that. That's the Beach Boys.
All right.
Well, that's our era. That's our era. Real quick before we run out of time. So many cases that was dismissed by the city attorney, and they're misdemeanors. Is there any is there any responsibility to hold these people accountable? Why don't they? There used to be a sitcom called Night Court. Why don't they? Probably the courts are overwhelmed with all this, but why don't we have a night court and get some of these people sentenced or charged or whatever?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I don't know. Certainly this year
Maybe we
we've
should
been.
get Mr. Klein on.
We could. You know what? We'll get him
Let's
and
send
the
an
mayor.
invitation out to Mr. Klein and the mayor.
No, they never respond.
I bet they
It'll
won't.
never be answered.
So getting back to what you were talking about with the juveniles and guns. Reference, and I don't know how much of about the case you know in depth, but reference Kyle in
Kenosha.
Kenosha. He was a juvenile. He defended himself according to everything that I've seen. Do you see any way they can get a murder charge on him for what he did?
You know, I don't know enough specifically about that case. I do know that felons who are prohibited otherwise from possessing firearms, that the court cases will say they can use a firearm if self-defense applies.
Right.
And so if the juvenile themselves, much like Ohio, were prohibited from having the gun, and there was a right of self-defense, which, again, I don't know if there was, but that might allow them to have the weapon that would enter into the picture and enter into the decision on what, if anything, they should be charged with.
Okay.
Well, Ron, we are on. This hour goes by quick. We're getting low on time. Are you able to hang with us for our Facebook people that are watching and answer a couple more questions and stuff?
Glad to. Let me finish quickly that story, though. That fellow that was throwing the Molotov cocktails then picked up a trash can that was metal, broke out the window of the Adam H. building there at Broad in Cleveland, set a couch on fire, and $250,000 in damage later. Luckily, we found him, because we have a picture from social media of him actually setting this couch on fire.
But he was a good kid, though. He was a good kid.
Did he have a mask on?
No, he did not.
Good.
He did not, luckily.
Thank goodness for social media. You know, sometimes.
Yes. And frankly, much of the evidence that we have is due to social media, whether it's Facebook.
So they're shooting themselves in the foot.
Whether it's Reddit.
Right.
Or other kinds of photos that were taken by people and posted online.
Well, guys, you got to get out and vote this year. Go out there and vote for Mr. Rhino Byron. We need him to maintain his position in that office. Thank you so much for a lifetime of service to the community.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate the invitation.
Yep, and you're going to hang with us for a few minutes here. Have a good week. Next week, we have Trump-appointed U.S. District Attorney on with us.
I might tell you, Eric, Dave DeVillers worked in our office and was the chief of our gang unit before he went to the U.S. Attorney's office.
Wonderful.
Let's be careful out there.
Are you there, Em?
Yeah, 1 second.
Yep.
Turn me on at least.
Well, I'm doing commercials. She likes to have a clear mind. When
You're going to do those first then, right?
Well, yeah.
Okay, then hit.
Well, what's he saying?
He's talking gibberish again.
We're talking smack.
Why would you do that?
I don't know.
Hey, that was good with I like how that ends with the Hill Street Blues.
Well, it's your show. I just do what I'm told.
Well, then play my song.
Did he just say I didn't play his song?
And I turned his mic off him.
Because Surfing USA was your song. And
I
it's
know.
A great choice. So.
I understand it was. And Ed and I, we were bouncing around over here.
So was I, because I love the Beach Boys.
All right, we're all bouncing.
All right, Eric, I'm ready.
Okay. This is Eric from OnTarget. This week we welcome President Trump appointed U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Ohio. And don't miss the Gun of the Week, sponsored by Blackwing Shooting Center. Tune in Saturday at noon or live from LEPD Studios on Bethel Road. Was that too long, Em?
Hold on 1 second. Okay, try that again. I'm sorry, Eric.
Yeah, okay. This is Eric from OnTarget. This week we welcome President Trump appointed U.S. Attorney for the Ohio Southern District. And don't miss the Gun of the Week, sponsored by Blackwing Shooting Center, Saturday at noon or live from LEPD Studios on Bethel Road.
That was good.
All right, number 2. This is Eric from OnTarget. This week we welcome President Trump appointed U.S. Attorney to the Southern Ohio District. And don't miss the Gun of the Week, sponsored by Blackwing Shooting Center. Tune in tomorrow at noon or live from LEPD Studios on Bethel Road. This is Eric from OnTarget. Today we welcome President Trump appointed U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Ohio. And don't miss the Gun of the Week, sponsored by Blackwing Shooting Center. Tune in today at noon or live from LEPD Studios on Bethel Road.
Perfect.
Thank you, Em.
Sure, thank you. You're welcome. Have a great day.
All right, you too. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, bye.
Ed, you're up.
Well, it's about time. I've been keeping my people waiting.
Okay, so
Got a
Mr.
great
Ryan,
fan club
now
today.
we've kicked off the air. So now you can speak your mind. Although it is going to thousands on Facebook.
You don't have to worry
right now.
about using the S word either. You can say shit.
Even if you don't know it, you can say it, right, Papa?
Will Schoonover is, wanted me to ask you why it's so hard to get the death penalty in Ohio.
The death penalty is applicable to only the offense of aggravated murder. There are 6 degrees of homicide, aggravated murder, manslaughter, reckless homicide we talked about, negligent homicide, which is a misdemeanor. So first you start off with aggravated murder needs to be the charge, and that is purposely causing somebody's death with prior calculation and design, or in the course of a serious felony such as rape, robbery, burglary, escape. The last case I think I tried as a death penalty case, a specification is murder of a law enforcement officer. The 2 Westerville police officers that were murdered a few years ago was tried as a capital case. I think the bottom line answer is that 1 juror of 12 after the defendant is found guilty of aggravated murder, and one of the death penalty specifications, you go to a second trial where you hear primarily about the defendant and why he's in the courtroom that day. Frequently you will hear about mental health issues, drug issues, upbringing by parents. Mom was a drug user, dad beat mom in the youngster's presence. Psychologists will come in, testify about that upbringing and how the kid never had a chance, and even though he's an adult now, that's what caused him to be what he is today in the courtroom. And that kind of evidence need only convince 1 of the 12 jurors that you should not recommend to the judge a death sentence. And I can tell you that out of the last 3 cases, one of which a jury returned a death sentence, I might add, and Christopher Garrett was a defendant. But that Westerville case and the Brian Goolsby, who kidnapped, raped, and murdered Reagan Tokes, was tried as a death penalty case. Again, there's only 1 or 2 jurors that were convinced by this mitigating evidence that they talked about, and it defaults into a life without parole sentence, which is what Brian Goolsby got. He will die in prison, and that's what Quentin Smith, who murdered those 2 Westerville officers, will do. They'll both die in prison.
When you do get that conviction, why does it take so darn long for that? I mean, after that conviction, for the death penalty to actually occur? I mean, it's like you're talking about stuff that happened 20 years ago. Why is it more immediate cause and effect on that?
There are repeated, as there should be, appeals and reviews of the trial in the case. The delays in recent years have been the method of carrying out the sentence. As I think I mentioned off air, the drugs being used, some experts are coming in contesting that they themselves are cruel and unusual punishment, and the federal courts have said that the drugs themselves can't do that. And so that's been the delay for most cases in recent years.
What prevents in Ohio? Is the death by lethal injection? Is that the only?
Correct.
I mean,
correct.
Okay.
And at least the death by lethal injection is the only method that's approved. There's a protocol down to the kind of drugs that can be utilized.
Wow.
And frequently they use 3 drugs: 1 to paralyze somebody, 1 to slow their heart, and then 1 to cause the death. And those 3 drugs, in that combination, they say, has caused cruel and unusual punishment to the offender. The feds, as you may have seen, recently have started to carry out death sentences on their cases, and they use only 1 drug, pentobarbital, and then you get into the availability of the drug, because the drug manufacturers don't want to be boycotted.
Right.
by those opposed to the death penalty. So the state of Ohio, and I don't know how the feds are carrying out their sentences currently, but cannot buy the drugs necessary to carry out the sentence, and that's what's caused Governor DeWine and before him Governor Kasich to put on the moratorium.
Seems to me there's plenty of electricity around. I mean,
Plenty of electricity.
Bullets right now is a shortage.
Yeah.
Sparky.
And you can go to Russia to get some of their lethal nerve gas and
Or,
everything.
you know what?
Would that be humane?
Just bring back Dr. Death from Mount Carmel.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I had to say it. I mean, he got away with quite a few of them. So.
Ron, a lot of these cases, there's such a rush to judgment. And we keep calling these mayors, these governors, the media complicit in some of these police shootings because they'll come out right off the bat and say, oh, my Lord, look at this. Another policeman shot another guy. And almost without exception, the guy had a gun. The guy was assaulting the officer and stuff. How does that affect your case? If when it's basically tried in the court of public opinion, long before in the courtroom, does that harm you? Or will you have to face geez, should we release some of this evidence here to quell the public? Or that's a tough thing now.
Yeah, it shouldn't affect a jury because extensive questioning will be done with the jurors about their exposure to any of the pretrial publicity. So it shouldn't affect the jurors that ultimately see and hear the case. What it does do is cause some people to rush to judgment. Every kind of offense or shooting by a police officer or another person, someone broke into their house in the middle of the night and they shot and killed them, that's going to be justified, but you still need to fully investigate it. You need to have the crime scene search unit there. They need to take photographs. You need to see if there's body camera. You need to review the body cam. Sometimes they do it frame by frame. You need to look at social media that may exist. So that investigation frequently will take, at a minimum, several weeks and sometimes several months. And so the best advice is to fully investigate it and not rush to judgment, whether you're the police or whether you're the mayor or whether you're the media or John Q. Public.
Right. Does so you've been doing this a while now.
Couple of years.
Is there hope? Is there hope that this is going to turn around, that we're going to, get law and order? Does it pain you to see what's going on in our streets, the lack of you've dedicated a life to law and order. Do you see it like we see it from the law enforcement side and just sickened by it? Are you, is that your motivation for going on and running again? Or?
Well, certainly anyone who is violating the law in any manner from the riots will be prosecuted if we can prove it. Certainly we also support the right to protest under the First Amendment. The problem is when people cross the line, and we have had outsiders come in and use the lawful protest to loot, to engage in arson, to express their disappointment with police conduct, which hasn't occurred here.
It hasn't.
And so everyone has that right, but there have been those that have used that lawful protest to commit other crimes, vandalism, looting, and assaults on police officers who are working 12 hours in the heat, in gear that causes them to be overheated. And so when someone throws a rock, a bottle, or a Molotov cocktail at them, that's clearly a crime, and if they can be identified and apprehended, we'll prosecute that case.
You know, seeing the news day in and day out, seeing actual videos of what's going on, but yet the news reports it differently and says that what you really see, it didn't happen.
That's on CNN.
You tend to get frustrated and a little depressed that when is this going to end? When are things going to get turned around? I know, Ron, when you and I went to school, it seemed like the things were a heck of a lot simpler. And I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's because we were young that we just didn't see all the other stuff that was happening. But it's just day after day after day, and it seems like when's it going to end? I mean, don't you get a little frustrated about this?
Yeah, I think that for the most part, while there have been continued protests down at the State House or the Courthouse or City Hall, I think that the bulk of the frustration with the system that caused people to be protesting in the first place, the people that are down there now will continue to protest for perhaps separate reasons. I think that the system has tried to address. There's a charter amendment on the ballot, as I think you commented on, for a civilian review board. The city council has passed and is considering further legislation. My concern is the violence in the street, particularly with the juveniles, and were, by my last count, 93 homicides set to a record rate in the city of Columbus.
That's incredible.
For this year.
Yeah.
Felonious assaults are up 45% since June 1st. And we haven't talked about the coroner, Dr. Ortiz, just yesterday gave the first half of 2020 overdose death figures, and they're up 65% over last year.
Wow.
So you have drug overdose deaths up 65%. You have homicides up. You have shootings up substantially. And everyone is trying to get a handle on the cause behind that, and that's a very difficult proposition.
The Civilian Review Board, what we're hearing amongst, what we do and our interest in it and the whole bit, what we're hearing is that the people that are being recommended to be on the review board have some sort of a background that makes them anti-police. I mean, but yet it seems like that they're getting away with this. And have you heard anything about? They have certain people that have a history or a background
of being anti-police.
Being anti-police. How is that going to do anything but cause more polarization? And
you would think that you would want professionals. You'd want, retired police chief Kim Jacobs, someone who knows policy, but it seems like these are just activists that are on there,
And it almost makes you feel like if I was an active police officer, that I'd be thinking about getting involved in anything, because nowadays you have, it used to be if you saw an officer that was in trouble, you would help that officer. Now people stand back and take a video, and
well, at least the people that I think that you're referring to do not constitute the Civilian Review Board, because that's not been established yet. They're studying what a Civilian Review Board should look like after the issue would be considered and voted on.
But I thought they named names.
Oh, no, they. But these are the people that aren't on the Civilian Review Board because it's not created yet. Is I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah.
They're a group that's studying what should it, if it is created, look like, and then I think the mayor and/or city council would appoint the people next year, because the issues that relate to civilian review boards have to be negotiated with through the collective bargaining agreement. So the city attorney has already advised city council that if the charter amendment passes and if a civilian review board is created, that its powers have to be negotiated with the collective bargaining unit that represents the Columbus officers. And so at the end of the day, many of the core issues are going to have to be negotiated with the police union.
Well, Ed, there was one last question.
I got two people, more than two people, asking me to get you to explain Ohio's castle law in depth.
In depth.
Well, the castle law essentially says that if you are in your house or in your motor vehicle, that if you use deadly force, that you're presumed to have done so lawfully if someone is trespassing in those locations. And the other thing that it does, it says you don't have a duty to retreat. If someone walked in the gun store right now, I might have a duty to jump down here behind the counter before I jumped up and fired 6 times at them. And that's because we're in a public place. In my home, I don't have to do that. It's kind of presumed that if you're in my house and you're not invited or authorized to be there, that you're there for a bad purpose or you're there as a trespasser. So you're presumed to act lawfully. The other thing, and it really isn't part of the Castle law, but last year the legislature changed the law in self-defense to say that the prosecution needs to prove that the person was not using self-defense. Prior to that time, the defendant or someone charged in a homicide or another assaultive offense had to prove by a preponderance of the evidence, which is about 51%, that they were using self-defense properly.
Okay.
That was repealed. Now, if someone raises self-defense, the prosecution has to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt that self-defense did not exist, and that's a major change in the law.
So then you still have to maintain that you are in fear of your life.
You have to be in fear in your life and protecting your life or the life of a third person at that time.
Nothing to do with protecting property.
Correct.
It's right. You have
to be
harm.
you have to be in fear of your life or the life of a third person. In fact, I had a case several years ago where someone was in the driveway breaking in the car, and the homeowner went out and said stop, and as they're running away down the street, when they hit the sidewalk, he shot him, and you just can't do that.
No.
And he ended up being charged himself with
But there's
manslaughter.
people that think that they can.
There's a lot of people out there that think they can do that.
Yeah.
And that brings up the other question that I had, getting back to the couple that brandished weapons in Minneapolis and were brought up on charges for that. In a scenario like that, say out where I live, a group, whatever group it may be, are coming up my driveway. And I live 500 feet off the road. And they're carrying their weapons of choice, maybe Molotov cocktails, maybe be mace, what have you. I'm protecting my family inside my home. At what point do I have the right to defend myself? Do I have to actually wait till they're coming through the door?
Well, I think it comes back to what Phil just says, that someone who uses force or deadly force has to be in fear of their life and have to be
Well, if I got 30 or 40 protesters coming up to my house.
Protecting that interest or your family's interest, you feel that their life is at hand. But when you do use that deadly force, then you're putting yourself in a courtroom, conceivably.
Right.
And at least now the law's changed where I have to prove that you weren't in fear of your life and therefore not entitled to use deadly force.
So these knuckleheads you see downtown coming up to my house, I mean, you've seen the destruction that they've done and the damage they've done, coming up to my house, making threats that they're going to get me. I don't have to wait for them to come in the house as far as I'm concerned, because I feel that they're going to hurt me or my family with deadly force or burn my house down with us in it.
Well,
tell 12 jurors that.
Well, what I always tell people is at that point you call 911. And at least if 10 minutes later no one's responded and they're on your front doorstep, that's a different situation.
You articulated that it's escalated, and I mean, I would have a hard time defending myself unless they truly were shooting at the house or they were,
I'm just trying to bring up some scenarios that some of the folks may be thinking out there. I mean, I know what the law is.
I always discourage people from using any kind of force, or particularly deadly force in that scenario. They need to call the police and I'll wait for the police to arrive.
And there's the civil side of things too. I mean, they might say, okay, you're not guilty of it, but civilly,
you've always got to worry about that.
End up in court.
That's right. Thank you so much for coming by.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Everyone needs to get out and vote, and certainly let us know how things go. Call in anytime. Stop by anytime.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Yep. Good seeing you.
I'm going to turn in my overtime slip on
Thanks,
this.
Ron.
Yep.
Well, I hope everybody out there got their questions answered. If we didn't get to them, let me know next week, and I'll try and get them all caught up. The ammo the MO is a bad situation.